Welcome everybody to Javelin's presentation on controlling complex data with SOLIDWORKS Pdm and the new SOLIDWORKS Manage. I'd like to welcome everybody. We're going to go through not only a few PowerPoint slides, but we're also going to dive into the Pdm software, show you what we have to take care of complex data there, and we'll let you know right away what we can do. Let's move along. My name is Rob Hauser. I'm a system architect here at Javelin Technologies. I used to be a customer for over 10 years, actually closer to 13 years. I put Pdm in a long time ago, so I've got lots of experience with it. And today I'd like to help you out with looking at complex data and how you can put things into Pdm. Javelin has offices coast to coast, as you can see. We literally go from Atlantic time all the way over to Pacific time, so we follow the sun across the continent for us. So there's always somebody available on the help desk for one of our products. We have specialists for each of the products, so you always have key access to those particular people. Let's take a quick peek at what makes our data so complex. Obviously, we have a lot of data silos. We have people from a lot of different departments creating a lot of different types of data. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's CAD data, it could be engineering data, production, purchasing, even sales quotes. There's all sorts of places that people are stashing their data away. Local drives, server drives, different server silos or networks areas to save on different things. Makes it very difficult for a company to collect all that intellectual property that various people have created. Unfortunately, these days, if you can't find something within about 5 minutes, people go and recreate it again as best they can. It's not always the greatest for making sure you've got continuing data that everybody can rely on. What's the biggest thing that makes our data so complex? Well, the size mainly. We have so much data that's being generated. Normally, Office files are considered to be singular files. Users may have one or two of them open. They might even have email open, but the files themselves are generally single document type files. CAD data, on the other hand, gets to be multifaceted. We have an assembly. One assembly could have 10 parts to it. Those 10 parts could have 10 drawings, and before you know it, you've got 22 very large files that are potentially moving across a network, being opened up on someone's local machine. Those assemblies can have other components associated with them. There's BOMs, there's simulation data, there's all sorts of various things like mirrored parts. So we can see quickly that CAD data gets to be very complex very fast. We look over the past few years and see the growth in data that's actually loaded on our workstations and servers. We can see that we're growing exponentially, and that just keeps increasing. We can see that by next year and the year after, that data is going to explode. That makes a couple of things that we have to take a look at. The IT side of things needs to make sure we've got a place to store it, but if we've got the data stored, people need to be able to find it. They need to be able to access it. Then we get into areas about what that content is. You know, there's various things of the metadata that's what making that file complex. It's not just the words in a Word document, the CAD data in a CAD file, but it's all the associated things, the metadata that's associated with it, such as material, project or product numbers. You know, is it purchased or modified purchased? Is it an internally designed component? What's the status of that file? Is somebody working on it currently? Has it been approved? Is it waiting for an approval? All of this technical compatibility of these different files needs to be melded together in one place so that all the users are very well aware of what's happening with that data. Likewise with revision numbers and such, we need to make sure that people are only working with the latest and greatest revision in those areas like production and purchasing. However, in the engineering area, we need to make sure that they're working with the current file that's under revision. They don't want to always work with the latest and greatest. So there's all sorts of different aspects, and that comes into play with that data, and then of course how we handle it with the workflow. The structure of that data also then gets to be very complex. We have CAD data that has those reference files. We have an assembly file with a component of part files and drawing files. The version numbers and revision scheme that goes with that also adds to complexity. But non-CAD data can have that as well. And it's very simple to say that a Word document is a Word document, but if it's something that's in a controlled environment, such as a quality assurance program, we need to make sure that that particular document is also being controlled, that it's being used by the right people in the right release. Even the portion of the document that's considered the boilerplate or the template for that document needs to be controlled by the document owner. Other people need the ability to go ahead and add data to that file, but they shouldn't be able to go ahead and wildly edit that content when they're not supposed to, or even to change the base document, that template, and put new fields or delete fields. That should be something that's controlled by the document owner. Again, Pdm can take care of that. Likewise, versioning and all of those numbering associated portions of the file, whether it be a file name or a engineering change number, all of that needs to be kept in reference, and it needs to be saved as part of that complex data set. And of course, there's administrative side of all that data. You know, who can go and access that data? When can they access it? When was it created? Has it been approved? Has it been approved, or has it been reviewed? Are people waiting for that to happen so they can go on to the next step? Is the file current, or has it been obsoleted? We want to make sure that people aren't grabbing files that, you know, everyone else knows that they're obsolete, but some people might not have gotten that message, and they might grab it by accident or in haste if they can't find the file that they were originally looking for. And of course, a non-CAD document can also have referenced file when it's in the Pdm system itself. I can link a non-CAD document like a Word file or an Excel file to a CAD document, or I can link a CAD document to a Word. If I find one, I find the other. So those things add that complexity. The data type itself also leads to some issues with data. You know, is it an image? Is it a PDF type document? Is it a video file? We can see where video is really growing very prevalent, which is taking up a lot of that data that you saw in the graph earlier. People are relying more and more on video content. How is that data going to be dispersed to the users? If we've got a lot of silos, we don't know that everybody has access to those various things. Put things in a Pdm vault, we can suddenly control that with a workflow, like we'll demonstrate in a couple of moments. Those silos are broken down by the various departments that are in your company. A lot of times people don't even know that data exists from another department because they don't have access to that silo. That either leads to somebody going and asking for some information, or they go and search it out and they create it on their own. It might not always be the sole source of the truth if they go and create it on their own instead of going to the document owner. Now, access is very critical. Who can get access to a document? When can they get access to it? Can they edit it? In other words, can they write to it? Can they approve it? Can they just consume that data? Do they know how to go ahead and see what was created by others in either their own department, which is usually hard enough because they don't know where they've saved it all, what the file name is there a older version of it? Is there a new version? But what happens when they have to deal with other departments? If you can't keep track of literally your own documents and your own department's documents, how are you going to find things that somebody else created in another document system and location from another department? How do they search and find that information quickly? So what we're going to do today is we're going to quickly go through and look at how we're going to organize and automate things, how to leverage data, how to take care of the searching of that data, as well as security and web interface for that data to make it shareable. And then we're going to talk about next steps, which is Pdm Manage. So let's take a quick look at how we go through all of this stuff. We can see that it's going to use an interface that we all know. That's the Microsoft Explorer interface. Everybody knows how to use that. Pdm adds some extra controls to it to make sure that it's very easy to use. It's nothing really new to learn as far as software goes, just a few commands and some functionality. And what that's also then going to give us is the ability to automate and standardize some things. So let's jump in and take a peek at how we do that. We're going to drop right into Pdm. And all we really need to do through Windows Explorer is just go ahead and log into that vault. I'm going to log in as myself. And once we've logged into the vault, I've done it manually simply because I jump into lots of different kinds of vaults. A lot of users will be connected to the Active Directory on your system, and therefore when they log into their workstation or their laptop, that'll bring them right into the vault automatically, so they don't have to have a second set of passwords. We can see here that we've got everything laid out the way Windows Explorer does on the left side. We can see the folders to show us that we have access to all of our drives, whether they be networked or local. But when we're in the vault area, the folders turn green to make sure that people realize they're working in a secure area. What we've done is we've got Pdm to separate that window out to a little bit more detail, more so than what Windows Explorer allows, that we have the file and folder view. And what we actually can do is drive into our various files and folders, and we can see that I've got mine separated by year. We can drop into a project. I've got subfolders, and we'll show you how we can automate that in a minute. So up here, you can see where the file and folder view exists. We've got some actions and functions across the top. We can always use our mouse and right click and go ahead and get our standard functionality. You can see here that I can go ahead and do various things that are PDM specific, but I still have access to all my Windows Explorer functionality. Now, the nice thing about this is we've given you a lower section with a couple of tabs. So when I'm clicked on an assembly and I hit the preview tab, I can quickly see that file. Is that the one I want to open up? I don't really want to open it up in SolidWorks unless I know that's the file that I want it to do. Likewise with Word or Excel, I don't want to have to go to the bother of opening it up in an application just, excuse me, just to find out it's not the file I was really looking for. Now, once we've got a preview of this, when it's in a CAD mode, I can click on that, and that's going to take me in where I can actually go ahead and do all sorts of simple things. I can even take a measurement. So if I just wanted to look to see what the size of that bore is, I don't even need to open it up in SolidWorks. This comes in really handy on the shop floor. Keeps those people down there from having to come up, bother the engineers, interrupt them from what they're doing. They need to drop out of the particular file they're working on, open up this file and potentially SolidWorks and take that measurement. This could be done right down on the machine shop floor through a very simple computer interface or even a web interface, as we'll show later. The other nice thing about this is if we wish, at any point, we can do an exploded view. We can take a look at what is involved in doing that. There was no CAD interface required to do that. We didn't need a designer to go ahead and set that up. That's just part of eDrawings. So that's part of the internal system. So being able to simplify things, we can see data like project information. We know what version of the components are at. We can have a bill of material very easily presented for us in several different formats. We can export that to a Excel file, so it could be imported, which we'll talk about later on, into an ERP system. And of course, it's an assembly, so we get to see what it's contained as in the hierarchical child-parent folder level that we are used to. But we can also, if we select a component up above, I can find out where it's used. So we can pop on an item, and we can see that that component is used in that assembly. I don't even need to trust the description or know what a part number is. I can get a quick preview exactly of what that part entails. So the nice thing is we've got very fast, easy to know user interface to get in there. But if I decide that I want to go ahead and create a new part or a new project, we've got some automation that we can build into Pdm Pro so that we can go ahead and launch a new project. That's going to bring up a window that's very easily configurable for the way you work, whether you're doing projects or products, because there's two different ways to work, obviously, sometimes a combination of the two. And what this system is set up right now for my demo is it grabs the next project number out of the Pdm numbering system. I can give it a name. So we're going to call it a rocket sled. Now, the nice thing is we've got all these fun cascading menus so that we can go ahead and bring up different things depending on what I pick. You know, we can very quickly go ahead and drive through you know, how all of these things are done. So I'm going to go ahead and create a processing machine. I can pick a project manager, and I can even go and grab a customer list out from, say, an ERP system or even a separate database or a list just to go ahead and create it. When I click the OK button, what it's going to do is it's going to drive back and it's going to go ahead and create that project structure the way I want. And what it's done is it's taken a look at the current year and it's gone ahead and dropped that directly into my projects. You can see where it's grabbed that next project number, it's grabbed the name and put it directly together, concocted it together so if a user knows a project name, he can go ahead and just surf into that folder. If he knows the project number or the name, either of those two components, he can find them equally well. What you don't see readily until we dive into it is it's also automatically created these folders inside. What that does is drives the user to being able to use a very stationary type of data folder structure. That way, everybody in the company is quite aware of where those documents are kept. They don't have to try to interpret where did John put that file on Monday morning, and when he created a new project on Tuesday, what did he name the folder then? So we can make sure that the company has standards that are attained to. You can have different kinds of project automation, create different folder sets for different circumstances, so you're not fixed to one set. You'll also notice in here that we went ahead and we dragged the document in automatically as part of the project initiation component. And we can even preview that document and we can see what it is. We don't even need an Office license to go ahead and do that, we can go ahead and read into the Word, Excel. We can even look at PowerPoint files and take a look and see those and do a preview on them. Because it is based on Windows Excel, if I double click on that particular file type, it knows to open it up in Word. And the interesting thing about that, Pdm Pro actually is integrated into your Office documents in SolidWorks. You can see that we have a SolidWorks Pdm tab integrated right into the Microsoft ribbon. You'll also notice that we highlighted in here those 5 tabs that we had filled in within the project start folder have automatically populated the files that are within that folder. So right now we've got 5 fields that we didn't have to enter the data into. We know right away that there's 5 less fields for a user to go ahead and enter, and therefore there's 5 less chances, actually more so, for making mistakes. We all know that we don't put one file in a folder. There could be 10 or 100 or 500. Just think of a number of fields that you don't have to keep re-entering with all that data and potentially making a mistake. So it's very easy to go ahead and have these pieces of data enter into CAD files. They can enter into Word documents, Excel. We can also read the information back out of those documents into Pdm if those happen to be checked out and then updated. You can see here what's a SolidWorks Pdm tab. We have quick access for the Pdm functionality right from within the application. So we don't really need to worry about having to jump back and forth. So what we've got here is the ability to go ahead and do some automation to create all sorts of things. We also have functionality in our system that we can go ahead and grab a group of files, and we're just going to select all of those, and we can just grab them, and we'll jump back into my vault, and we're going to drop them in there. And what you'll notice is when those files go in, we've got a standard Windows File Explorer copy menu. So again, nothing new for the users to be confused by. They've seen that countless times, no doubt, in the duration of them using Microsoft File Explorer. What's going to happen, those files are going to drop into the vault, and they're going to show that they're checked out by the user that copied them in. And that's because the files haven't been actually checked in for the very first time into the vault. So you'll see my name pop up here. I can right away just click on all those selected files, and I can say check in, and those files are automatically to go through a check-in. And you'll note that it also knew to go ahead and put them in a hierarchy based on the SolidWorks design tree. You'll also see that it grabs some of these other files, and it's highlighted to me that those files were not included in the file set that I copied into that folder. So even before the designer starts on a project, he can tell right away that they're missing some files, and they know to contact the person that supplied those files that these 3 particular ones were missing, and maybe I can't start my work until I receive those. I don't have to start the work and then figure out that, hey, I'm missing a file. It's telling me right away. What I'm going to do is check all of those in. You'll see that my name will disappear from that. And the check-in now means that those files have been placed in the vault. They have a timestamp of what I did and when I did it. They are now available for anybody else with security rights to go ahead and check those files out. You can read them if you've got rights. You can actually read and write to them if you have the correct rights for that. So you can see here that they've all been checked in. I can do a preview of those files. We can see what they are, whether it be a PDF, even an image. We can very easily see that those files are available. I can even read an email if it was dragged and dropped into that folder. If I look at the data card, I can see all the contents, and we could even read any of the attachments and see what they were if they're associated with it. So it doesn't matter what the file type is, all that data is very easily able to be put and organized within Pdm. Now, the interesting thing with this is once I've got those files in the vault, we know that we're organized, we know that we're situated, and we've got things the way we want them to be done. So everything's fast and familiar. People know where their data is going to be. They have confidence that that data is going to be in a location that they can go and find it the next time. Not only the person that created it can find it, but those people that need access to data downstream as that product or project progresses through your system, they're going to know where to find those files as well. So let's take a look at how we leverage all the data that we just put in Pdm. We're going to show you how we control versions and revisions and what the difference between them are. We're also going to show you how you can share that data out to other people. So one of the key things with the data is that it's very complex. Whether it be CAD data or non-CAD data, like a Word file, it could be a PDF. we can still version control all of those non-CAD and the CAD files so that we know that we're working with the correct file. So being able to manage those and have version control on them, make sure that people are using the right file at the correct time. And we can also make sure we take the view away from certain people on older files that we don't want them to look at. Say somebody in a production floor environment, they will always see the latest file that's released and approved. A good area for this also to be used in is the quality assurance area. If you've got some kind of a quality management process, whether it be ISO or one of the others, we can take and actually have the root documents, those templates, managed by the document owner. Only they can go ahead and change those templates. However, other users, given the correct security requirements, could add data to those templates, but they wouldn't be able to potentially, say, remove a field or alter a statement on a field. They could only add data to that particular field. So being able to go ahead and do all of that work within PDM is actually quite key. Let's take a look at an assembly. If we go ahead and say we want to open that assembly up, all I did was clicked on the assembly itself. You can see where SOLIDWORKS is opened. And what's going to happen with that is that file is going to pop in, and I said to grab the assembly and open it in SOLIDWORKS, so it assumes I want to check it out. I can turn that off so I don't check it out. I would have it only in read-only mode. But because I've said I want to check that one out, I'm going to also then take the write access to that file so that nobody else is going to be able to write to it while I have access to it so that I can write to it. And what that does is eliminates the aspect of having more than one person take a copy of a file. The first person, maybe the second person, writes back to that folder. The third person writes over top of everybody and deletes all their changes. That can't happen with PDM because only one person can check out at any given time. In this instance, I know that I want to go ahead and alter a sprocket. I want to go and do a revision to it. I don't remember what the part number is, so I can quickly go ahead and take a look and say, you know what, there's only one sprocket in this unit, and yeah, I remember it. The last two digits were 94. So I'm going to say check that item out as well. And what that's going to do is give me read-write access to both of those files. However, all the rest of the transmission components, I will only have read access. Somebody else could still check those out and make changes to them. What you'll notice is the window is broken up in SOLIDWORKS into a couple of normal areas that you're used to seeing. We have the design tree in whatever location you have it. We actually have the workspace in here, but on this side, we've got the Pdm view. This is actually showing us what PDM is doing. And as you can see, these components here have my name checked out on them. If I select the component either in the design tree or in the build space, or if I actually look over here in this tree, they all highlight at the same time so that I know which component that I'm actually working on. So it makes it very easy to keep the user abreast of what it is he's using and what he's working on. In this particular instance, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a quick modification, and I'm just going to unsuppress a couple of things here, and we're going to pop some holes into that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and check that in, and I'm going to say that I've added some holes to that item. I'm just going to give it a quick comment. Added some round holes. So now I've got a quick comment. Just takes me a couple of seconds to enter that in. I'm going to check it in, but I want to leave it checked out because I still want to do some work on that next. So what it does is it checks it in. You can see where it's going to pop it from version 1 to version 2. The first digit represents what's in my local cache. The second digit represents what I've got on my server, and right away I've got another version in there. I can very quickly go ahead and I can suppress those, and I can add something else to that if I wish. So let's go ahead and throw some slots in there, and we'll put those in, and then all we really need to do is check that in again. And we'll just say added slots. And we're going to check it in, but at this time I'm not going to leave it checked out because I don't want to keep editing that component. Now I've got version 3 of 3. So I know I'm up to date with my server, but at any point I can go ahead and I can get a version that I wish. I could go back and say, what if we have version 1? What if we are looking at the unit without the holes in it? What if I want to show somebody how that was? What if I want to go back and say, get version 2? Now we'll show them what it was like with holes in it. This is great for doing reviews with either a customer or an internally. We can show them what they are. I'm going to tell it that I want to go ahead and use that particular area for my storage. And there we have those holes. Here it tells me that I'm not working with the latest and greatest. I'm working with version 2 of 3 possible versions. And of course, I can always just drive myself to get the latest. We can even set this up so the user very specifically has to work with the latest version only, and that could be dependent on what level your user is at. So right away, I've got these different versions. I can go ahead and check all of these items in. And now we're going to check in the assembly. And if you note, I didn't rebuild that. And one of the things that I want to show you is when we check that item in, it's telling me right away that I did not check that file in. Something changed. I'm sorry, I did not rebuild that file. Something changed when I checked it in, but I hadn't rebuilt it. And this is a good flag to let people on the shop floor know that something might not be quite right in the view that you're seeing because something got skipped. Right now, the designer knows that he hasn't done that. And I could say that this is ready for release. I'm just going to ignore that notice. We're going to check that in, and you'll see that this will now go to 2 of 2, and it blinks, and there we're at 2 and 2. We'll do a quick release, and we're going to go ahead and send that for approval. And you'll notice that down here, the file of this particular part, it's grabbed all of those items. All I did was select the assembly, and it's automatically grabbed all those parts. I can turn them off if I wish, and I can say, ready for release. And I can ask someone to please check for release. So right away here, we go ahead and we send this off, and you're going to see down here in the workflow area that this is going to change states. It's now going to go from in design to waiting for approval. And it's going to jump off, and we can either look at it here, and we'll see very quickly that I can pop into anywhere. Let's pop back into my Pdm view if I get the right spot. And I take a look at those parts, and they're all waiting for release. So everybody's kept up to speed of what's happening. We now know that the designer has sent something for release, and it's waiting for management to go ahead and approve it. So the nice thing about that is whether it's a Word document or a CAD file, we can do the same type of process for all sorts of documents. We can make sure that we've got increased throughput, and we can control change. So now after that, we really have to take a look at security. We have to take a look at controlled access, and we need to look at how we can find that information. What we can do there very quickly is we can jump into something. We have all sorts of searches that we can pull up. We can go ahead and do an engineering search. I can say, show me all the items that are waiting for approval. And then we run the search, and it's going to find me all the items that are in my vault. It's going to show me everything that has waiting for approval as its process step. So there's all sorts of things that we can do with combining waiting for approval. Maybe I'm looking for a date range and it's waiting for approval. It was worked on by a user. Maybe even there's a material or a project number that I want to be very specific. We can take all those items that are in our vault and start to condense them down to only what I'm going to look for. And therefore, it's very easy to see that information. Now, the nice thing about the security aspect of this is that we can very quickly take a peek at how we set things up. We'll jump into the administration panel for a moment. We have all sorts of things. We can create groups. Those groups can be assigned things such as, let's look at an engineering group. We have all sorts of things that we can go and say who the member of it is. Well, actually, in that one, we have no members. Let's go look at designers. There we go. So we've got members that are part of the design group. We can see what folder permissions they have access to, what state permissions in what workflow that they're allowed to work in. So we can see the different areas that they can do and what they can't do. So security is very granular, right down to the checkbox of the individual functions that a particular user or group of users can and can't do. The other area that we'll take a look at is the controlled access through security. With that security, we can actually jump into having access allowed with smartphone devices, whether it be a tablet, whether it be just a web browser on a simple computer out on the shop floor, or a smartphone. Makes it very easy for people to stay connected, do a quick query, see what the dimension of a component is. A manager could even approve something while he's in a meeting off of his tablet or a smartphone. So there's all sorts of things that we can do to go ahead and make sure that we can make that information available to everybody. That's going to allow better decisions, much better integrity on those files. We can make sure that we can control who can write, who can read, and of course that we can make it accessible across multiple platforms. So jumping off into next steps, let's take a look at what SOLIDWORKS Manage. This is a brand new product that's been brought out. It's set up to actually be able to do project management, process management, item management, items being different than the actual files that you've got set, say, in PDM, and of course, dashboards to report on all of those. So what we have available is the aspect to make sure that you've got project management, including resource planning. The process management brings things in such as the ability to go and do engineering change requirements, conformances, corrective actions, and the transmittals. We can do item management right to the point of having bill of material variants. So you don't necessarily have to use the components out of PDM, but you could. But you can also have items put in there that don't actually represent a physical file. So maybe there's a component that you're going to want to include in the bill of material, but it's not part of the engineering spec. Maybe it's a sticker that gets put on in manufacturing, but you don't have a part number in engineering for it. You could actually create that as an item. And of course, all of that information can be set up as a dashboard. The interesting thing here is the fact that we can quickly move through all of the aspects of how we can manage things. We can make sure that we review the resources. We can have access into PDM tasks and functionality. We can make sure that those items are attached to the bills of material. And of course, those timesheets and tracking units can be done in a Gantt chart format, as you're quite used to. So there's lots of functionality that we can do to help manage a project. We also have process management. We can actually have the ability to go ahead and not do workflows specifically like PDM does. We actually have a better way of setting things up to manage projects by doing these task sessions. And what we can do with that is we can actually bring in workflow changes and states from PDM and have them actually work with these tasks and affect how these things are being done in the process aspect of these areas. And of course, it's all drag and drop. It's very simple to use. Item management comes in handy because you can create ad hoc bombs for different variants and various things that you're looking at, and they are separate from what you've got in the PDM session, so that you don't need to go ahead and break apart what you've got for SolidWorks. And of course, you can manage all those bomb configurations and variants. And of course, the dashboard aspect gives you the ability to go ahead and take a quick look at all of those things. It could be user-based, it could be different types of controls for different user configurations. You can look at all sorts of data that's in there and be able to bring them up and present them so that you can easily understand a lot of that data. So there we see it, how to manage complex data with SOLIDWORKS Pdm and SOLIDWORKS Manage. We took a look at organizing and managing things. We looked at how we can go ahead and leverage all that data that we now have in the vault. And of course, we can search. We can have security set up on those files any way that we wish. We have web access to get that data out to the consumers, to users of that data. And of course, with the next steps with SOLIDWORKS Manage, we can even get into much more complex data management. So with that, I thank you very much for taking the time to investigate and see what we have to offer with SOLIDWORKS Pdm and SOLIDWORKS Manage. I'm quite confident that we can control data for you in a way that you're just not quite aware of or used to, and we can give you that added level of confidence that your data is where it needs to be and the correct users have access to it and can control that data when they need to. So thank you. Let's take a quick look at questions, see what we have. So yes, that was the SOLIDWORKS Pdm 2018 version. That is correct. The only couple of differences there really are the branch and merge function, and there's also a revision table option that's in part of Pdm 2018. There's also an undo command that's really cool in the administrator for those of you that do a lot of Pdm administration, something that we haven't had before. And yes, the ability to go and do that measurement is in both 2017 and 2018. It's actually part of the e-drawings component that comes with that. You could still do that way back in 2016, I think even in 2015, if I remember correctly, that far back. So those measurement abilities are very easy to get access to other people on the floor. And yes, Pdm standard gives you that functionality if you set e-drawings up properly. And that's it for the questions right now. I thank everyone very much for submitting those. If you do have other questions, feel free to contact us at Javelin. Most of you have a SolidWorks sales representative that you can reach out and contact. You can find us very easily on the web. There's lots of different blogs that we put out there and information available at javelin-tech.com. Feel free to jump in there. And I thank you very much. Have a great day.